If you're a diehard Browns fan and love breaking down the game like we do, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss a blitz. David Njoku is not going anywhere. At least, that's how it feels after the trade deadline came and went in Cleveland. While the Browns made a couple of eye-raising moves, shipping veteran quarterback Joe Flacco off to Cincinnati and defensive end Joe Tryon-Shoyinka to Chicago, they didn't pull the trigger on what many fans feared would be a full-scale roster purge. And right in the center of all that chatter was Njoku, the team's fiery tight end, the emotional heartbeat of the offense, and one of the longest-tenured Browns still wearing orange and brown. As rumors flew that he might be on the trade block, perhaps heading to a contender looking for an athletic, veteran target, Njoku kept his head down, did his job, and waited for the dust to settle. When it finally did, his message couldn't have been clearer. He's happy he wasn't traded, and he wants to stay in Cleveland for the long haul. That kind of loyalty means something in a city like Cleveland, where players who stick around through the storms often become legends. Njoku has been through it all: the constant quarterback changes, the heartbreaking losses, the brief glimpses of playoff promise followed by gut-wrenching collapses. Since arriving in 2017 as a first-round pick out of Miami, he's seen more offensive coordinators than most teams see in a decade, and yet, he's still producing. This season, he's logged 27 catches for 260 yards and 2 touchdowns in just 7 games. Numbers that don't exactly leap off the stat sheet, but speak volumes about his consistency in an offense that's struggled to find rhythm. For Njoku, it's never been just about numbers. It's about identity, about being a Cleveland Brown in every sense of the word. Tough, resilient, and unshakably loyal. Of course, the NFL is never just about loyalty. Contracts, cap space, and production all play their part, and for Njoku, the next few months could determine what the rest of his career looks like. He's in the final year of the 4-year, $54.75 million extension he signed back in 2022 after being franchise tagged, and he's made it known he's eyeing another deal to stay put. Browns insider Mary Kay Cabot reported that the front office had no real intention of trading him, despite the whispers. That suggests something important. They still see him as part of this team's core, even with rookie tight end Harold Fannin making noise. Fannin, a third-rounder out of Bowling Green, has been one of the more pleasant surprises of the season, putting up 38 receptions for 352 yards and a pair of touchdowns, already outpacing Njoku in raw stats. But the Browns don't appear ready to push Njoku aside. Instead, they may be envisioning a future where the two coexist, a veteran mentor and a young talent, representing both the present and future of the position in Cleveland. Still, there's an elephant in the room: the Browns' uncertain future at quarterback. Since Baker Mayfield's departure, the franchise has cycled through passers like a revolving door, and not in a good way. Dylan Gabriel, the latest to take the reins, has had a rough start. Shedeur Sanders, the rookie some fans are clamoring to see, hasn't been given the nod yet. And hovering over all of it is the massive, seemingly immovable contract of Deshaun Watson, a deal that has gone from controversial to outright disastrous. Cleveland has already restructured Watson's contract multiple times, ballooning his 2026 cap hit to an almost unimaginable $80.72 million, a figure that would shatter NFL records. Combine that with projections that the team will be more than $12 million over the cap that same year, and you start to see the storm clouds forming. Njoku's next contract, if it happens, will need to fit into a puzzle that already looks dangerously overcrowded. But from Njoku's perspective, staying might not just be about money. It's about finishing what he started. He's already third in Browns history for receiving yards by a tight end, sitting at 4,029, fewer than 200 yards behind Milt Morin for second place, trailing only the legendary Ozzie Newsome. That's rare company, and breaking into the top 2 would cement his legacy as one of the greatest to ever play the position in Cleveland. In fact, if he surpasses Morin, he'd also crack the top 10 for receiving yards at any position in team history. Those are milestones worth sticking around for. Despite all the chaos around him, the offensive inconsistencies, the quarterback woes, the front office roller coaster, Njoku has kept producing, posting 628 yards in 2022 and a career-high 882 yards in 2023. For a player whose career has spanned multiple eras of Browns football, that kind of durability and focus speaks volumes. And make no mistake, if he were to hit free agency, teams would line up for him. Njoku's still only 29 years old, younger than most of the other big-name tight ends who might be available this offseason. We're talking about a potential market that could include Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, Dallas Goedert, Zach Ertz, and Tyler Higbee. All stars in their own right, but all older than Njoku. Add in younger names like Cade Otton, Chig Okonkwo, and Isaiah Likely, and you've got a crowded field. Yet Njoku's combination of athleticism, experience, and leadership would make him one of the most intriguing options out there. He's proven he can block, catch, and, perhaps most importantly, endure. Even with Pro Football Focus calling him one of the league's least effective run blockers this year, coaches know what he brings beyond the stat sheet: toughness, energy, and a presence that elevates the locker room. The Browns, for their part, would be wise to recognize what they have before it's too late. Because here's the thing, Cleveland can't afford to lose another cornerstone. They've already dealt with roster instability for years, constantly rebuilding, reshuffling, and searching for that elusive balance between veterans and young blood. Njoku represents continuity in a franchise that's too often defined by turnover. He's the bridge between eras, drafted during the Hugh Jackson years, surviving the Freddie Kitchens chaos, and still contributing under Kevin Stefanski. That's a rare feat in the NFL, especially in Cleveland, where coaching changes have almost become an annual tradition. Extending Njoku wouldn't just be a football move, it would be a statement, a commitment to stability in a locker room that desperately needs it. And there's another factor: fan connection. Browns fans love Njoku. They've watched him grow from a raw, freakishly athletic kid with hands that were sometimes suspect into a polished veteran who embraces the city's gritty spirit. They've seen him battle through injuries, come back stronger, and play with a passion that mirrors the city itself. When Njoku says he's happy to stay, it hits differently in Cleveland. This is a town that values loyalty almost as much as wins. When a player chooses the city, not because it's easy, not because it guarantees championships, but because it feels like home, fans remember that. And for Njoku, that bond with the fan base might be worth more than any extra million another team could offer. Still, there's a pragmatic side to all this. The Browns have big decisions to make beyond Njoku. Both of their starting guards, Joel Bitonio and Wyatt Teller, are in contract years. Defensive linemen Shelby Harris and Alex Wright are also unsigned beyond this season. The team's front office, led by Andrew Berry, has to juggle all of that while navigating Watson's monstrous contract and preparing for another uncertain quarterback situation. It's a balancing act that will test Cleveland's financial creativity and long-term vision. And while Harold Fannon's emergence gives them flexibility, it shouldn't make Njoku expendable. In fact, it should do the opposite, provide a blueprint for a dynamic two-tight end system that could take some pressure off whoever ends up under center next year. What makes this story compelling isn't just the football side, it's the human one. David Njoku's journey is one of persistence, resilience, and growth. He's not the same player he was when he entered the league. He's evolved into a leader, a tone setter, and a voice of stability in a franchise that's often lacked it. He's the kind of player who still believes Cleveland can get there, that the Browns' long-promised rise can actually happen. And maybe that's why, even in a league driven by transactions and statistics, his words after the deadline carry so much weight. He doesn't just want to stay because it's comfortable. He wants to stay because he still believes this team can win. So as the Browns head into the second half of the season, one thing is clear. Keeping David Njoku wasn't just a good football decision. It was a necessary one. Amid all the uncertainty surrounding the roster, the cap, and the quarterback situation, Njoku represents something the Browns haven't had enough of: consistency. He's seen the lows and still believes in the highs. He's lived through the rebuilds and still wants to build more. And as he eyes that extension, the Browns would do well to remember that sometimes the best move you can make is not the flashy one, but the steady one. The move that tells your locker room, your fan base, and your city that you're building something real, not just for now, but for the future. Enjoying the content so far? Smash that like button and drop your take in the comments. We want to hear what you think about the Browns this season. Shockwaves are rippling through the NFL world as the Cleveland Browns find themselves in what can only be described as a full-blown crisis. Myles Garrett, The defensive juggernaut who has terrorized quarterbacks since entering the league reportedly requested a trade, setting the stage for what could be one of the most explosive off-season sagas in recent memory. The mere thought of Garrett walking away from the team that drafted him first overall in 2017 has sent fans, analysts, and even rival teams into a frenzy, with speculation mounting on where the superstar pass rusher could land next. Garrett's name has long been synonymous with speed, power, and an almost supernatural ability to collapse the pocket, and now the Browns' front office faces the daunting task of navigating what some insiders are calling a war within the organization. Sources close to the situation suggest that tension between Garrett and the Browns' management has been simmering for months, possibly years, and that this trade request is the boiling point of frustration that has been quietly building behind the scenes. While Garrett has been undeniably dominant on the field, recording sack after sack and consistently being in the conversation for All-Pro honors, whispers indicate that disagreements over contract negotiations, team direction, and roster construction may have reached a point of no return. Imagine a player of Garrett's caliber, someone who has carried the defensive line on his broad shoulders and commanded attention from every offense in the league, now openly questioning whether he sees his future in Cleveland. The implications of this are enormous, not just for the Browns' defensive strategy, but for the entire culture of the team. Rumors are already swirling about potential trade destinations. Teams with young quarterbacks in need of a defensive anchor are reportedly circling like vultures, ready to pounce if the Browns decide to move one of their most celebrated stars. Fans of franchises from coast to coast are frantically speculating. Could Garrett land in a Super Bowl contender ready to capitalize on his unmatched athleticism? Or will a rebuilding team roll the dice on a player whose talent is undeniable, but whose presence now carries a stormy cloud of uncertainty? Each scenario comes with its own set of dramatic storylines, with some insiders hinting at blockbuster trades that could reshape the landscape of the NFL. Imagine the conversation in locker rooms across the league, coaches whispering to general managers, fans updating their social feeds in real time as the news trickles out. This is the kind of high-stakes drama that makes the off-season feel like a playoff week. Adding fuel to the fire are murmurs about Garrett's personal ambitions. Those close to him reportedly see a player who isn't just chasing money or statistics, but one who is determined to align himself with a team that matches his intensity, vision, and championship aspirations. Garrett has never been shy about his competitive fire, and it's clear from these reports that he wants a situation where his presence on the field translates directly into a legitimate shot at a Super Bowl, not just individual accolades. The Browns' current trajectory, with a mix of young talent and veteran uncertainty, may no longer be enough to satisfy a player of Garrett's mindset. If this rumor holds, the front office faces a nearly impossible choice. Do they double down, attempting to convince Garrett to stay, or do they embrace the whirlwind of a trade, potentially acquiring draft picks or young talent to reshape their roster? Each path comes with risks and rewards that could echo for years. Meanwhile, fan reaction has been explosive. Social media platforms are flooded with speculation, with hashtags related to Garrett trending across the NFL landscape. Die-hard Browns supporters are torn between disbelief, anger, and cautious optimism that some resolution, perhaps a reconciliation, could still be on the horizon. On fan forums, the debate rages. Some argue that holding on to Garrett at all costs is essential, a non-negotiable move to maintain credibility and defensive dominance, while others contend that a trade could be a strategic reset, a chance to acquire multiple assets from a team desperate enough to make a splash for a superstar like Garrett. The intensity of the chatter has reached the kind of fever pitch typically reserved for draft day or playoff week, highlighting just how seismic this news has become in the eyes of the football community. Industry insiders also point to the timing as critical. The NFL is approaching a period where trades, free agency moves, and draft positioning all converge, meaning that Garrett's decision, or the Browns' reaction, could have cascading effects across multiple teams. Imagine rival executives recalculating their strategies, adjusting their scouting priorities, and considering bold moves to take advantage of Cleveland's sudden vulnerability. In this environment, Garrett's trade request isn't just a single headline. It's a catalyst, a domino that could redefine rosters, salary cap structures, and playoff projections. The very notion that a player drafted with such fanfare, a figure who has embodied Cleveland's defensive identity for nearly a decade, is now entertaining departure, shakes the foundation of the team and sends shockwaves across the league. On the field, Garrett's presence, or absence, carries tangible consequences. His ability to disrupt defensive lines, rack up sacks, and command double teams is unmatched. Defensive coordinators across the league have long studied game film of Garrett, trying to devise schemes to counter his relentless speed and strength. Losing him would force the Browns to rethink their defensive philosophy entirely. Could they pivot to a rotation-heavy system, relying on depth instead of a superstar anchor? Or will they double down on young talent, using the potential trade assets to build a new defensive cornerstone? Each scenario paints a dramatically different picture of Cleveland's future, and insiders note that Garrett's influence extends far beyond the numbers. His leadership in the locker room, his presence on the sidelines, and his ability to set a tone for younger players all factor into what could be a complicated and emotionally charged decision. Of course, no story like this would be complete without the whispers of potential drama behind the scenes. Some speculate about heated meetings with team executives, private conversations with coaches, and even personal discussions with Garrett's closest allies about the best path forward. There are hints that Garrett has been consulting with veteran players and advisors, weighing his options carefully while keeping his cards close to his chest. The secrecy only amplifies the intrigue, leaving fans and media alike grasping for insights and trying to decipher subtle signals in press conferences, interviews, and social media posts. Every public appearance becomes a potential clue, every interview quote dissected for hidden meaning, fueling a firestorm of discussion that's impossible to ignore. In the midst of all this speculation, one fact remains clear: Myles Garrett is a force to be reckoned with. His blend of speed, power, and football intelligence has redefined what it means to be a defensive end in today's NFL. He was the Browns' first overall pick in 2017, a choice that signaled hope, transformation, and the promise of a new era. Now, just 6 years later, the narrative has shifted dramatically, casting uncertainty over a franchise that has long sought stability and success. Whether Garrett stays or goes, the reverberations of this story will be felt for years to come, influencing draft decisions, free agency strategies, and the balance of power in a league where talent and timing are everything. The Browns, and indeed the entire NFL, are holding their collective breath, waiting to see how this saga unfolds. And one thing is certain: whatever happens next, it will be talked about for a long time, because a player like Garrett doesn't just leave quietly. He leaves headlines, controversies, and a storm of questions in his wake. As the rumor mill churns, insiders caution that we are only seeing the beginning. The trade request is likely just the tip of the iceberg, and negotiations could stretch on for weeks, if not months. Every move by the Browns management will be scrutinized, every response from Garrett will be magnified, and every competing team will be plotting their next move in a high-stakes game of strategy, negotiation, and ego. Fans are advised to buckle up, because this is shaping up to be an off-season storyline unlike any other, one where loyalty, ambition, and raw talent collide in a drama that extends far beyond the field. Myles Garrett's decision may well define the Browns' immediate future and send shockwaves across the league, proving once again that in the NFL, one superstar can change everything. Thanks for riding with us on another Browns Blitz. If you liked the video, share it with a fellow fan, hit subscribe, and ring that bell so you're always part of the Dawg Pound conversation. Go Browns!